Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to give you my review on looking at Chapter Approved and the Munirotum Field Manual that comes with it as well. This is obviously Chapter Approved 2019, third one, 2017-2018, where they sort of, Games Workshop, review the sort of way the game works, gives us sort of updates on that one and different new ways to play. And there certainly is a lot of focus on different ways to play. So what I'm going to do is obviously give my review on each one. So we'll start off with the Munirotum Field Manual. First thing I've got to say, I love how they're both matte laminated rather than gloss laminated. You know, I just think matte laminated is hands down a little bit better and it just feels a lot better. So already solid start with that as well, just like matte laminated. So let's start off with the Munirotum Field Manual. As it is, pretty small and simple book, literally just content, intro, and then just a whole bunch of points. Like, I think only like the first 2 pages, and the rest of it is all points. Apparently they've got everything in here, and yes, that does include Forge World, Rogue Trader, and Blackstone Fortress. I don't think it covers the sort of legacy units they were talking about in Index. I think that's going to be something they have mentioned in Community Post later on, where they're going to review these sort of index-only units and then bring them in later on, which I think is a solid plan, but they are not in here because it's obviously not finished yet. I have no doubt there is mistakes in this, not that I've seen any, but you know, there will be something that's probably not right. It's literally like everything in the game, everything. It's so many pages of points. So I don't think there's going to be every single one of them correct, but you know, you've got to appreciate the effort into getting so many of them there. If by some miracle they did get every one of them right, top job, but I won't judge Games Workshop for getting any wrong and having to FAQ it, simply because there is a huge amount there. So, you know, I think this is a great move in a couple of ways, though I'm sure some people will still find a way, they're not happy with it. I think it is a great move. For players like me, who plays many different forces, and I play very regularly, you know, I'm in a lot of battle reports, like a ton of them, and I often make lists for various different armies in one night. Usually I'll plan out maybe my month's worth of gaming in when we make the schedule. I plan out all my battle reports and all my points in one night. I will write them all up because I know the forces, etc. we're going to play. So this is generally going to be really good for someone like me, just so that I can have, I just need to make all my points, I just have one book really to go with. Which is, you know, handy for me, for someone who plays a lot of forces and plays a lot, you know, that's just me as myself as a player. Generally just having all the updates, and it's all the updates in one place, is super useful, I think, for everyone. You know, not having to go to Forge World books, not having to go to codexes, not having to go to supplements, internet stuff, pieces of paper that came with the unit, looking at admech stuff in particular with that. Bam, you know, one book, easy sort of to refer to, and I think that's a good move. However, there are, you know, let's address other things. However, there are many people who obviously use different programs, you know, different ways to make their points, to make their list, you know, technology is getting on, etc. And some ways I don't see them moving on to the book in particular, but they might find it useful for cross-checking. I think this shows an interesting move from Games Workshop in having to have points more accessible in a different format rather than, you know, just having the codexes. And I think they've realised this because releasing codexes, you know, having their codexes, and then they release new units, but they're not in the codex, they have to find other ways to do it. Whether it be online or whether it comes in the box, makes it a little bit different to make the points. Also the chapter approved. It means there's a lot of ways for people who don't use the tech way. There's a lot of different ways to find the points. So just having it in one book is a very good choice in my mind. Possibly in the future, I think that this may be a way that they might be looking into their own version of, you know, looking into an app or technological aspect to create points. I can see this, they've got a bit of worry on that because they're worried people may then not buy the codexes. But people still will buy the codexes because they need their day sheets, they need their stratagems, they need their warlord traits, etc. You get my point. Having the most accurate points area is essential. Probably people with power levels are not happy about it because people with power levels, I don't. that's not so ideal for them. But I just think it's, a good step in the right direction just to have a simple book that has all the points and everything in here, and it just is very, very simple, where it's like Dark Angels, everything you can have in there, Force of the Imperium, Adeptus Sororitas, Astra Militarum, etc, etc. Very, very handy book, and I know I'm going to get plenty of use out of it, and I think everyone on the channel is. So, excellent. I'd hope that maybe they might look into other tech ways to get other people. I've seen many people mention different aspects to it, different ways they could do it, and there is obviously, they've got to consider the cost evaluations in it as well. But I think this is a step in the direction. They say we've got to have information more accessible to people and make it easier for them to address points. So yeah, solid choice. I think it's good. I don't use I use books to create my points because I'm useless with technology, and I just think this is a good way, step forward. It may not be to everyone's preferred way, but I think it's just showing a step forward, essentially for the people who use books. It's going to make their life a lot easier, and I hands down think it's a good move. So nothing much more to say on that one other than it's a book of points, and it is a large book of points, but it's well organised. Chapter approved 2019, slightly bigger, much more detailed. Oh boy, this is different to the last one, which I gave a review on. So where in the past we had the Adeptus Sororitas beta codex, which was quite nice to see, which I think influenced quite a lot of where the current codex is. Obviously people then went, these aspects don't work, I'm looking at the faith system, and they reinvigorated it, because that was their reinvigorated one, and then the beta they went, nah, it's not working, and I think they've got a more acceptable version now. That worked out quite well. They've not done it this time, and we don't have anything like the 8, which was for the Tau, that was in the last chapter approved. Nothing really like it this time. We do have demon data slates. We're looking at Slanesh units, not the horrors, the furies I think are in there, fortification data slates, and I think battlefield terrain got a bit of an update as well, and that is about a third of the book with all these sort of updates in there as well. So it's nice to see them in there just to help people a bit more correct on that side, so that is quite handy. However, the rest of it is on suggested ways to play. It's about the different ways you can play this game, which is quite nice. So I'm going to start with match play, as I feel this is the version I pretty much play exclusively. I know it best, and all the points and everything, all the lovely points, etc, etc. Now, it starts with a bit of bookkeeping. It starts with new battlefronts, and really that is sort of the ways, it just speaks about Battle Brothers, boots on the ground, limits of command, tactical reserves, just explain the rules, because those were obviously through like Warhammer Community, they're not in the rule book. It certainly explains them a lot, like the updated rules, a lot more simply here. It's 2 pages, and it's a lot cleaner than the 2018 one. The 2018 one, and they put too much artwork in places and it was a bit jumbled up, is a lot nicer in this one, and it certainly helps it clarify the rules on that one. I still stand by that they need to redo the rulebook, especially for new players. But I think that is not on the agenda at the moment. I think that is for whatever they've got in the future, 8.5, 9th edition, whatever. But I think this is a good way to clean it up, review those sort of rules and keep people right. It's 2 pages and it's just a lot more simpler. Whatever they do for the future in a new edition, which keep in mind, 8th edition as in summer is going to be roughly 3 years old. I don't know. But it's just nice to have that wee bit of an update and keep us right. As for the missions themselves, now this is where on one part I'm slightly disappointed, on one part I'm really intrigued. The Eternal War missions, 3 are updates from 2017, 1 is an update from 2018, and 2 of them are new as far as I'm aware, and they do say in a section here where they actually came for and why they updated them, which is kind of nice because I may have not noticed that they actually updated them if I didn't refer back to each of the chapter approves. But they do reference that this is from this edition, why they've updated it, etc. Now, I love, I can understand why they want to go back to the previous chapter approved missions. It's been a while since 2017, I think it's out of publication now, and it does have some really good missions in it. So you might struggle to get their missions. However, it's nice to see 2 out of 6 of them are new ones, and it's nice to see them updating. And I can imagine some people are going to be a wee bit upset in that in the Eternal War one, all I could say in that one is that if you've got all the chapter approved missions, you're going to have all of them. Just this one, obviously, they have focused back on it. The Maelstrom of War, however, is almost entirely different. To put it this way, it's called Schemes of War, but still Maelstrom in a way. To play the Maelstrom of War missions on the following pages, the players will each require a deck of tactical objective cards, so you must have the deck, and must use the rules described in the section for tactical objectives instead of those from the Using Tactical Objectives section in Warhammer 40k rulebook. So there's a big change here. Now, I don't want to go into everything particularly, but I'll try and summarise as quick as possible because there is quite a lot of differences. So, constructing your objective deck. Before playing one of the following Maelstrom of War missions, after your opponent has shared their army roster with you, you must construct an objective deck. This deck should be made of a minimum of 18 tactical objective cards, chosen from the pool available to your army. No more than one copy of each uniquely named tactical objective can be included in your deck. Why is that interesting? Because I believe that the Yip says in here that the deck itself is usually 36 cards, so it allows you to weed out the cards you don't like. And I think we saw that in 2018 where they said tactical refinement you can remove 6. They're now saying it's down to 18, though you can include more if you wish. Sometimes you might need it. Interesting move on that one. I think that will certainly refine people's decks to try and score points where needed. Now, I'd say from looking at a quick perusal of the actual how you draw cards, it's a lot more difficult to draw cards. Using tactical objectives is more or less the same how you place them out. Using your objective deck. This is where it gets complicated, and there are stratagems, reorganisations, so I'll try not to go into everything in detail, but this is probably important. At the start of your first battle round, each player shuffles their objective deck and draws 5 tactical objective cards. If either player is not happy with the initial cards that they have drawn, they can choose to place them at the bottom of their objective deck in any order and draw 4 new tactical objective cards. At the start of your turn, put tactical objective cards from your hand into play until you have 3 in-play tactical objectives or there are no more cards left in your hand. Tactical objective card is considered to be generated when it is put into play. When putting a tactical objective card into play, place it either face up or both players to see or face down. It details kept hidden from your opponent until such a point as either achieved or discarded. No player can have more than one face down in play tactical objective at any point unless otherwise specified. Whoa. So it appears that you draw 5 to 4 cards, but only 3 of them are actually in play at a time, which is interesting on that one. There is different ways to draw cards, etc. Discarding cards, they go into a bit more detail. You can only achieve in-play tactical objectives after you've finished putting any tactical objectives into play. Draw tactical objective cards until you have 5 in hand. Okay. Yep, achieving tactical objectives. At the end of your turn, use your opponents. You must check to see if you've achieved any of your in-play tactical objectives. The description will tell you how and when they're achieved and how many victory points are scored for achieving them. If you achieve a tactical objective at the end of your turn, you must reveal it if necessary and immediately score the victory points for it. You cannot choose not to do so. Players can achieve any number of tactical objectives. After a tactical objective has been achieved, the cards are discarded. At the end of the morale phase, you can discard any of your in-play tactical objectives. You then have stratagems such as reprioritise. Use the stratagem at the start of your turn, discard up to 2 tactical objectives from your hand and draw a new tactical objective card for each card that is discarded, 2 command points. Tactical foresight, use the stratagem, etc. There's ways to augment the cards. This is a brand new way to use your tactical objective decks, and as far as I can see, all the missions for it are different from previous ones to reflect that. So there's an entirely different way to play your Maelstrom of War. Now, what's interesting about that is that the only thing I can see is a wee bit difficult is that Chaos Space Marines, specifically in their supplements, did not get cards of their Iron Warriors or their Word Bearers. They didn't get physical cards for them, so you can't put them in a deck. How is that going to work? The best way I can think of that one is that maybe they need to make an objective deck for all the sort of miscellaneous cards that maybe not in function at the moment. I don't know which ones they are. As far as the only ones I can think are Faith and Fury ones, of course. But certainly there's a heavy push on the decks themselves, and you do find it a bit more harder to draw cards, etc. from the missions. Basically, it's an entirely different way to play Maelstrom War. I am excited to try it. I don't want to say any more than that because I'm not entirely sure because I haven't played it yet, but I certainly will be covering it pretty darn soon. I think we don't have any battle reports scheduled like to film. You know, obviously we have one weekly, but we don't have any. I'm not playing like this week, but I think I'm playing like 4 next week or something. So I'll certainly try and make a big push for trying out these Maelstrom Wars with the cards to see how they try out. Who knows? But I'm very intrigued to see how they are very, very different from the before. I actually really love Maelstrom of War. I think it's probably my preferred way. I just like the randomness of the cards. You don't know where you're going to get. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. As for the rest of the book is what I'm referring to. Obviously your narrative and your, what's the other one? Open play, waste play. So for the rest, there seems to be a heavy focus on reinventing these, or at least expanding on them. I really haven't played them before, but I'm really interested in now. The open war has like an army generator, so it's like you don't make your army the standard way, you get to draw upon it through dice rolls, etc. And this is something different I'm interested to try myself, so people can't just make absolute gun-ho armies that are designed to turn one flip. You don't know how it's going to work, so you have to play with the sort of, you know, stuff you dice roll. And that is interesting for, you know, a bit more balance, where obviously it might not be in balance if someone draws like the best units and then someone does not, but it brings that idea of risk. You don't know where you're going to get, so I'm intrigued by that as well. Maybe not so handy for people who have set lists and then they don't have as many units, etc. But just an interesting different way to play. The narrative missions are heavily expanded, even more so than maybe the rest of the books, focusing on there's way for like vehicles, which is interesting, linking battles and narrative. And I think we have narrative campaigns we want to start in 2019 for the 2020 in the channel, so pretty sure that's in the works and we may use that as well. So I'm very excited to try that. Either way, there is also a narrative for challenge missions. Try and find the section for challenge missions. Yes, so there's like 3 challenge missions as well, designed for people who consistently win, you know, David, you know, who do really, really well. And it's like it's to make a different sort of challenge where it's not about winning the game, it's about doing as best as you can. So to give you an example of that would be this Last Stand one, where, you know, you and your opponent make up your armies, and to give an idea of overwhelming force, at the end of each of the attacker's movement phases, they can select up to D3 units from their army that has been destroyed and return them to the field. Returning units from the attacking army are set up wholly within 8 inches of the attacker's battlefield edge, as shown on the map below. And they have like a big like section, you know, long board edge, 12 inches up. So you might come in from the edge and really get quite on the field. Such units are treated as new units in all regard, and so will not be under the effects of any stratagems or other abilities that are applied to unit when it was destroyed. If the attacker's warlord is returned to the battlefield in this way, it is no longer considered the warlord. Bunch of stratagems on there as well to affect the battle. But how this works is the challenger condition, and the battle length is until the defender is completely obliterated. So, you know, this game could go on for 20 turns. It's until the defender is destroyed, though you would want to probably stop at about round 7. Challenger conditions: the defender receives a challenge rating, star rating, because they use stars, based on the battle rounds in which the army was wiped out. If you are wiped out in battle rounds 1 to 3, you get 1 star. Battle round 4, you get 2 star. 5, you get 3. 6, you get 4. And if you last a battle round 7 plus, you get 5 stars. Now this is an interesting one. You also have one that's like Headhunters, which is, I think, eliminate opponent's characters to score points, and then Domination, which is trying to control as much of the field as possible. You have segments you need to control. Only 3 ways to play, but very interesting, especially in people who are competitive and want to try something different. You're not necessarily designed to win these games by obliterating your opponent, etc. It's about certain ways that are challenging for you and to try and score as much stars as you can. And I think that's going to be an interesting one, where we may try this as a narrative game in the future, where we set up these battles and try and get as high star ratings as possible. I can definitely see I want to give it a try. I'm not spoke to David or Rob or Stuart in terms of these yet. They haven't seen these books yet, only I have. But I'll speak to them in terms of these star ratings. Very, very interesting. I think very well done. And I think in very competitive, or people wanting to try and, You know, you may get like battles where you've just win. This is something you can maybe go, right, how good can I do on these star rating ones? You know, it might be one game you're like, I only got, you know, only lasted 3 turns, only get 1 star. How can I get my 5-star rating on there? And I'm just very intrigued to see how that works. And I can imagine it's going to be awfully competitive in the channel itself over people who can get good star ratings. And obviously if we have any guests on, they can maybe give it a try as well. We've had a few guests on in the past month, and I'm trying to get a few more on in the future. So I'm just really interested in this. Usually we stick to almost exclusively points, but I'm very interested in this. And I'd love to hear what people think on that one as well. So that's kind of it for chapter approved as well. You know, again, it's probably not as much review last time because it doesn't have a codex in it, it doesn't have units in it, it is all different ways to play. Maelstrom of War and the challenge mode is obviously the highlight. I've not looked into the narrative one as much because many people have their own preferred way to create narrative games. But I think another set way, reviewing it, possibly, I think it may incorporate Kill Team, I'm not 100% sure on that one. But obviously they're trying to give you suggested ways to do it. But the challenge mode and the Maelstroms, I'm very intrigued to try. I'm very interested to hear what people have to think on it. So thanks again for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. If I'm to give you sort of my view, I'll give you my view in each book. I think the Munirotum Field Manual is going to get like an 8 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10. For me personally, 10 out of 10 because it's so useful. Some other people, maybe not so. But I think for people who do make theirs from like just a very, very easy way to refer to, at the full updates, it is fantastic. 8 to 10 out of 10, fantastic. Chapter approved, I'm going to give it about 7 or 8. You know, it'd be nice to see, I really like the idea they did beta codex. They went, here's rules that we want to incorporate and try out in the future. Obviously they don't have any in mind, which is fine. But I like how they've made a very, very big focus and very big different moves on how to go, and certainly have got me interested in narrative play. So that's, you know, already got me very, very interested. If you're interested in different ways to play your games, then yeah, get it done. If you're interested in having your points all one place, get both. They are, you know, in one collection, and I believe the same cost as they were last year. So that's pretty good. So yeah, thanks again. Check us out on social media where you can see upcoming projects. I want to say I'm almost done with Chaos. I've painted so much red, black and gold, it is tearing into my soul, but I've got a few more bits and bobs to go. If you've got any suggestions of units I should paint, let me know, but I've got like a few more to do. I'm desperate for in January to start a new project. Don't suggest to me what armies to do because people are trying. David, Rob and Stuart are both like, do this army, and I'm like, you know, I've only just managed to play my first battle report with the new Chaos and there's still more units I'm painting up for it. So I'm very excited because that was my first army I've ever painted. And I'm excited to get my next one. You'll be able to see it on social media when I do get started. And check us out on Patreon where you can help support the channel, bring you more content. Because we absolutely love doing so. Any support we get, we just love to bring you content and new stuff and try and cover as much as we can. So thanks again, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.